The Tides of Time and Chronicles of the Forgotten War. Chapter 3. Time Reimagined. The workshop beneath the ruins of Columbia University had never been busier. The faint hum of machinery mingled with the quiet chatter of the four friends, each engrossed in their final tasks. The time machine stood at the center, gleaming under the dim fluorescent lights. Its polished metal exterior was both futuristic and strangely ominous, as if aware of the immense power it held. Khalid Saif wiped the sweat from his brow as he adjusted the final calibration on the machine's energy core. "This is it," he said, his voice low but charged with anticipation. "The last piece is in place." Akash Kumar stepped forward, holding a console tablet. His sharp eyes scanned the readings, double-checking Khalid's work. Energy levels are stable. Temporal displacement parameters look solid. But we still need to test the containment field. Robert William looked up from his station, his face etched with concern. "You mean by sending something through?" "Exactly," Akash replied. "If the field collapses mid-transport, the results could be catastrophic." James Oliver leaned against a nearby wall, his usual smirk missing. "Catastrophic like, blowing up half the city catastrophic." "More like erasing parts of the timeline entirely," Akash said matter-of-factly. The room fell silent. They all knew the risks, but hearing them spoken aloud made the stakes even more real. The final adjustments. Khalid stood, stretching his stiff limbs. "We've come this far. No turning back now. Akash, run the simulations again. Robert, let's prep the containment unit for the test object." As the group moved with practiced efficiency, James lingered near the time machine, his fingers tracing the cool metal surface. "It's strange, isn't it? This thing might be the most important invention in human history, and we're building it in a forgotten basement." Khalid glanced over at him, smiling faintly. "Great revolutions often start in the most unassuming places." Robert carried a small metal sphere to the machine, placing it gently inside the containment chamber. The sphere, etched with tracking codes, was designed to emit a signal before, during, and after transport. "All set?" Robert said, stepping back. Akash nodded, tapping a sequence into the console. "Initiating test sequence in 3, 2, 1. The machine roared to life, its core glowing with an intense blue light. Energy crackled along its surface as the containment chamber hummed. The sphere disappeared in a flash, leaving behind a faint distortion in the air. The room held its collective breath. Seconds ticked by before a soft beep from Akash's console broke the silence. "It worked," he said, exhaling in relief. The sphere reappeared 5 meters from its entry point. Containment field held steady. Cheers erupted, but they were subdued, tempered by the enormity of what they had just achieved. Ethical questions later that evening, the group gathered around a small table, the excitement of their success giving way to deeper discussions. "This is real now," Robert said, breaking the silence. "We've built a functioning time machine. But have we truly thought through what we're about to do? What's there to think about?" Akash asked. "We're fixing history. Isn't that the entire point?" Robert shook his head. "It's not that simple. Changing the past doesn't just alter one event, it creates ripples. We can't predict how those ripples will affect the future." James leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "So what are you saying? That we should do nothing? Let this nightmare world continue to exist?" "I'm saying we need to be sure," Robert replied. "We're talking about rewriting history on a massive scale. Who's to say our changes won't make things worse?" Khalid, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "It's a valid concern, Robert. But let me ask you this, can you imagine a world worse than this one? A world where freedom is an ancient memory and every human is under constant surveillance?" Robert hesitated, then shook his head. "No, I can't." "Then we have to try," Khalid said firmly. "The nature of time." Akash tapped the table, drawing their attention. "Time isn't linear, not in the way we perceive it. It's more like a tapestry, interwoven and complex. When we alter one thread, we risk unraveling the entire fabric." James frowned. "And you're okay with that risk?" Akash shrugged. "It's not about being okay with it. It's about necessity. The world we live in is already broken. At least this way, we have a chance to create something better." Khalid nodded. "We'll proceed carefully. Focus on key events, minimal interference. Our goal isn't to control history but to give it the nudge it needs." "And if we fail?" Robert asked. "Then we fail knowing we tried," Khalid replied. The personal stakes. As the conversation continued, The group's personal motivations came to light. For me, it's about redemption, Robert admitted. I've seen how the regime uses science to control people, and I was complicit. I want to undo that damage. Arkash nodded. For me, it's justice. The regime stole my family, my future. This is my way of fighting back.
James grinned, though there was no humor in his eyes. And me? I just want to see the Watchers burn.
Khalid smiled faintly. For me, it's hope. My ancestors believed in a better world, and I want to honor that belief. If we can give future generations a chance at freedom, it'll all be worth it. The group fell silent, the weight of the shared mission settling over them. Preparations for departure. With their resolve strengthened, they turned their attention to the final preparations. Each of them had a specific role to play. Khalid focused on ensuring the machine's mechanical components were flawless. He worked tirelessly, checking and rechecking every bolt and wire. Robert prepared medical supplies and survival gear, anticipating the challenges they might face in the 19th century. Arkash refined the calculations for the temporal jump, ensuring their arrival would align with the pivotal moments in the Civil War. James programmed the machine's interface, creating a seamless system for navigation and communication. A quiet moment. As the night wore on, Khalid stepped outside the workshop for a breath of air. The city above was eerily quiet, the silence broken only by the occasional hum of surveillance drones. Arkash joined him, his expression thoughtful. You ever think about what we're leaving behind? Khalid nodded. Every day. But this isn't living, Arkash. It's surviving. If we have a chance to change that, even if it's small, we owe it to the world to try. Arkash smiled faintly. You're a dreamer, Khalid. I think that's what I admire most about you. And you're the realist, Khalid replied. That's why we work so well together. The dawn of change. By the time the group reconvened inside, the first hints of dawn were breaking over the horizon. The machine stood ready, a beacon of hope in the dimly lit sanctuary. Khalid placed a hand on the machine, his voice steady. Tomorrow, we make history. Or unmake it. Either way, everything changes. The others nodded, their faces a mix of determination and apprehension. Together, they had built something extraordinary. Now, it was time to see if it could truly change the world. If you like this story, then please like the video and subscribe the channel. Soon we will upload next chapter.